Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Influencers Project. I'm your host, Craig Reynolds. Today is a guest that I have known for so long, I don't remember not knowing him. He was always one of my biggest supporters and in my BMX racing career, and still to this day, I consider him a great friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Chad Roberts. Chad, what's going on, dude?
Hey guys, how are you? I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
It's good to finally see you. I see you on Facebook and maybe on Instagram, but I don't ever see you like in person, and we talk on the phone, but that's it. I haven't seen you. So the mustache is looking on point, dude. It's so good. I can't stand it.
You like that? It's kind of like my Samson hair. Yeah, it's my Samson hair because every time I grow this, I've done it once before, I get on this really hot streak shooting. So it's something that I'm going to keep for a bit. I might shave off the goatee and just go with the stash, but we'll see.
Dude, I like the whole look, man. I like the whole look. The hair, the stash. I don't think you should change a thing, dude. Run it. So let's
get gray there, man.
What do you mean getting gray?
I've been gray since you've known me. I know, right?
So when you and I first met, you were at Shimano, and you still are, which is unbelievable. And you were supporting me in my professional career with product. I think the first time we talked might have been at the NBL Grands, and you gave me a set of V brakes because I had some janky brakes on my bike, and you were like, dude, you got to switch those things over. And I was stoked to get the brakes. I think anytime anyone ever supported me when I was racing, I was forever grateful and sometimes loyal to a fault. But with you, it was the truth. And thank you for that, because that set me on a path of having the best product I could possibly have. And I'm still, loyal to this day.
Well, for me, it was, I have so many heroes in BMX. I mean, it was just, everybody was on, and you were on my wall, Chris Moeller, all these people that ended up becoming friends, Greg Hill, John Purse, you name it. And for me to be able to move to California, get involved with the bicycle industry, and then be able to turn around and race against you guys and with you guys and be able to provide something. I always told myself that if I could ever be in a position to help these guys, it's the one way I can provide or give back, per se, and just be part of that crowd. Because I was kind of chicken to turn pro when I first had the chance. And then I had some really good sponsorships with as an amateur. It's lovely to get paid to be an amateur. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to hurt myself on the weekends. I didn't have to,
What do you mean on the weekends? The pain came during the week, dude, when you're training and puking and doing stupid stuff. And then the racing part was the fun part. It was the training. Well, I like the training too. I'll admit it.
You know what's funny? The funny thing is, Craig, is that I never thought of that as punishment. I just did it. I did it from such a young age that I never realized all the work until I got older. And then that's when it started kicking in that, like, man, this is really hard work. It wasn't, not so much that it wasn't fun anymore, but it was a lot different. And, for me, I plan is something my mom always told me. So working in the industry allowed me to continue to race, continue to be at the top level, continue even at some point to turn pro, and to be able to do something where I was always touching the industry, and that's working at Shimano. So I started there in 1994, just before I met you. I believe at the 95 NBL Grands is when we met each other.
I think so.
And it was just a whirlwind, man. Shimano wanted to get back into BMX, and we had been in BMX in years prior with Bobby and Cenas and all these products that we made back in the early 80s when
so cool.
the big bicycle boom. And I have a lot of that stuff. And can I make a mark or an impact on the game like Shimano did back in the day? And I really, we've always been a company that, and we are still to this day, which is why I still love working there, is that we still go after people that want to ride our product because they want to ride our product, not just because we're paying them. So obviously that comes along with some sponsorships where
Wait,
you know, to get
wait. Some people got paid? What?
yeah, right. Hey, there were some bonuses out there. You know how that to talk about that, that was the hardest thing to get Japan to understand that we had to pay riders something because of the contracts that were being that you guys were getting from these companies. And you know, on the back end, Shimano was paying a lot of the companies, which was just part of the support that they were probably filtering down to you guys. So we paid the Mongoose of the world. We paid Redline, Haro bicycles. There were some huge contracts with the companies, which then of course embossed all the riders. Not until later, excuse me, that I came along did we really start going away from that and start doing more of an individual base, because I felt that, in my opinion, that BMX was one of the few sports that whatever the pro. So to develop product, bring it out to you guys, get it on you first, and then getting those kids to just go, holy crap, I got to have it. Working with the vendors at the races so they could have something to sell that was the machine right there. And Shimano just was able to provide the monetary support for me to go out on tour and to go all these races. And, you know, fortunately on the side, I was still racing, so it worked out pretty good. And to this day, we still are involved in BMX. It's not me necessarily. I don't really have anything to do with it. I give my input on some of the product that we make, but you know, all that stuff is still being done with the individual riders, and the Olympics came along. So,
well, tell me, let's dial it back. How did you get into BMX? Because you grew up in Montana, right? Like I think of Big Sky and University of Montana or whatever, Wyoming. I don't know, somewhere around there. How did you find BMX, or how did BMX find you? Because you're not only, yeah, we're gonna start there first.
So I you know, I don't remember the age I was, but I remember waking up on a Saturday morning. My mom was sleeping. Everybody was sleeping in the house, and I was eating my Lucky Charms or whatever the hell my mom would let me have at that time. Probably not a sugar cereal, probably something like Chex or something. And I remember turning on the TV, and you know, typical Saturday, watch some cartoon. He had the first person that popped up on the TV, and this is no joke, it was Eric Roop. He had silver lenses, you know, like the chrome lenses on his Oakley goggles. He had a face mask that was connected to Oakley face mask, and they were
on Mongoose.
Yes, and he was racing, and they were racing in Whistler, Canada. It was some big BMX race. Harry Larry did like a segment on using front brakes and rear brakes going through the corners. Gary Ellis, I think, was like amateur at 17 back then, if I remember correctly. But I saw, yep. And I saw, you know, Eric in those goggles, and I was like, holy crap, I got to be a BMX. I seriously went outside and I started sprinting around the parking lot, you know, or down the dirt road where I lived. And I was hooked. Anything I could see on TV, I just love BMX. I jump stuff, crash, do all that stuff. I had a banana seat on my bike, you know, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, just like pretty much most of us living in the Midwest or Northwest, you know, snowing in the winter and dreaming about BMX, putting collages up on my wall of pictures. I just stare at magazines and school and everything. I tell you what, BMX action, I would wear them out. I would just stare at them. I wouldn't even read I read them and then just stare at the pictures. And so from there, obviously, I think I was 6th grade, talked my mom into taking us to a race in Kalispell, Montana, which is down the road from Columbia Falls, where I'm from. And I watched this guy. His name is Chad Eslick. He's still in the game. He still rides. He's from Polson, Montana. He owned his own bike company for a long time. He's a total dirt jumper street guy, and he was just killing it. And I was like, oh my God, he's got a long tail out the back and he had the helmet and just the whole thing. And I was like, I got to race BMX. So Mom, I was hell bent on getting like either a Hutch like Mike Miranda had, a pink one, or a
Yes.
Kuahara. They had all those, or a Schwinn Predator. That was a little too high in price range at the time. So I think I was, it's kind of funny. My mom, unbeknownst to me, went to a local yard sale and bought me a BMX bike. And this thing was a hunk of crap. It had a mag in the back, a spoke wheel in the front. It had
Yes.
V-bars that were gold, had Oakley O-wing grips on it, or the big flange grips. It had like this double-headed goose. This thing, dude, it was my stepdad actually had welded it twice together. The name was a Challenger, and it was made by, I believe, Huffy or Murray. And I was telling my mom, I was mortified. I was like, I am not going to ride this bike. You can stick it. No way. I fought for days with my mom. I was like, no, I want my cool Mike Miranda model. And, you know, and she's like, we can't afford that. So I made it work, man. I had a coaster brake on that bad boy. I went to my first race, and I remembered that even Chad came up to me because I'd hole shot every race to the first corner. I think I had a 54 on the front, some crazy little single, you know, one-piece cranks, and I'd crash. I'd go all the way in the first corner, crash, and then, but I was winning. So I got the, you know, he says, if you ever could stay on your bike, you'd win something. And I was like, I don't even know what a double is because I never made it to it. So, you know, just kept doing that. Used to get super mad. Threw my bike once. My mom threw it in the car and said, you're never racing again. I went through that whole deal. Finally, and then it just kind of spiraled into, I built a really nice Elf BMX bike, had purple everything on it. It was chrome and purple parts, purple chain. It was god awful, but it kicked butt.
but at the time it was awesome.
Had Todd Blazer forks on it, and it was like his replica. Yes. And the Blaze was my guy. And it's funny because we're friends now, and I just looked up to that guy because all these guys were, you know, coming from the Midwest, no sponsors, moving out to California. My dad was coming down to
Blazer. I got to see the Blaze race Jay Hamby every weekend back in Illinois and the Indiana areas, dude. Like, to me, watching those guys race, I'm like, yeah, I watch them race all the time. Like, to me, it was nothing because I saw them all the time. But I could see how you guys would be like, oh my God, it's Todd Blazer. Because he was badass, man. That he was good. He was really good. And he had a cool bike, too.
Yep. Sorry, the garage is opening and everything's getting crazy in my house. But so for me, you know, I went from that to just, I started winning state races. I'd go to Canada, win up there. I won the nationals up there one year, but since I was an American citizen, I couldn't win the title, as they say.
Right. The Christoph rule.
Yeah. Before it was really a rule, but
yeah,
you know, I just kept on doing it, and you know, my dad would come down to California because he raced hydroplane boats, and he, so my dad was into racing too, and we used to race all over the country, and he was a high point champion, and he owned a world record boat. We set a record up in Castaic Lake, and I think it still holds in circle boats and 5-liter hydro. But we did that a lot, and we were down in Santa Ana one year, and I think I was 16, 17, and my dad was getting his boat worked on, and I was like, I want to go to the track in Orange. And I met Mad Dog and Harold McGruther and all these people, and Eddie King was there, and oh man, Union Pro, everybody was at Orange, and I was like, Billy Griggs would show up in all of his white gear and chrome bikes.
Yes.
Greg, I was like, holy crap, this is like the holy grail. I got to come to California. Chris was really cool to me, and we went riding down at the beach one night, and you know, we just I just was so enthralled with just the whole lifestyle of BMX that when I came home, I was like, I'm going to move to California one day. So, you know, fast forward, I'm here. But I never thought I would, I thought I was gonna, I think in my high school paper, they got me on a cover after I won state, and it said, what is your plans for, life? And I was gonna, corniest thing ever, and it still sticks to me today, is I was gonna move to California, be bad, and go deep. I don't know what that means. Still don't to this day, but I did it. And I just wanted to be down here. A couple of my friends, they moved down here before me, and they were state champions in Montana too, and Oregon, and it was Sean Kading and Sean. I think you know those guys, Sean Kading and Hippie Sean. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
Sean
Yeah.
Duncan. And so we all moved in together, and I raced here a bunch, and I was going in and out of Montana for a while, and then I finally just went to 2 years of college. I finished a degree and said, I'm out.
Wait, hold on. You broke up. You said you failed out and didn't get a degree. What was that last
No,
part?
no, I was supposed to go for 4 years, but I only went for two. And this is funny. This is how old I am. I'm sorry, but maybe all you guys have went through this too. But I got an associate's degree in business management and a a little side degree in computer accounting. Yes, computer accounting. That's when
Ooh, nice.
that was when they started going from regular accounting to computer accounting. So
you can probably still use that somewhere.
Well, with my business now, with the shooting business.
I was gonna say we're gonna get there.
Yeah. And so, I was working at a bike shop, going to some races, wasn't doing really well. Just getting in there, because man, that was when it was 17 and over expert. And I swear to God, I mean, when you got 120 people in your class and you're making the semis, you were a badass. And I made the semis at Cold Canyon one year, and I remember James Pritchard was on GT, and I had like this kind of a co-factory deal through my bike shop back home with Robinson. And I went there, and I remember they let me come in and get a shopping cart and just pile it. If I could fill it in the shopping cart, they'd give it to me. And I remember them telling me, if you could beat our factory guys, you're on the team. And I remember I had James going into the second corner, and the dude cut me off. And I broke my thumb on that one. So
that's Pritchard. That was his style. Like Pritchard wasn't messing around. Like that dude.
I had him, dude.
Cut you off. I was laying elbow on you. That was a pretty aggressive cat.
Yeah, it was over that tabletop where going in the second turn, and oh man, I tell you what, I came out underneath him. I thought I had him, and I probably would have blasted him over the corner, because I heard about how his riding style was. And it's funny now, we talk, we're friends. But he was a badass from Texas, right? So like these guys, they just had. He got on GT and he was killing it. And I was like, I can beat this guy. I got to get on the Robinson team. I wanted to be on the Robinson team so bad. And I was close. And that kind of solved that. And then when, I was still living down in California, and I ended up working at the shop, and then I befriended Chris, and I started hanging out, and I went to work for S&M for a year. And so I was kind of double dipping with my job and working for Chris, sleeping in his warehouse, helping him do frames. So I got into that side of racing with S&M. I kind of wanted to bring a racing vibe to S&M, because I remember back when Chris was an A pro and racing out at Orange. I mean, all the sponsors are there. He was sponsored by Airwalk and all these people, and he was jumping over the third berm, and he was testing all the time, and he was just doing great things with his bike. And he was competitive, and he was a small dude. And I was like, I want to be that way. And he was super cool to me, ended up giving me a ride. And actually, he's still in the world of the racing, but I worked for him for a while.
You broke up for a second. He's still what? You broke up. He's still what?
Oh, it went full circle with him, because I'll tell you at the end what happened. But I worked for him for a long time, and then I got a bike shop ride that was sponsored by GT, and I rode for them for a little bit before Shimano kind of came along. So one day, one of my friends at my job at the bike shop said, hey, they're hiring at Shimano. I'm going to try to get a job there. And he got the job. And then 6 months later, I heard through a grapevine they were hiring again. So I they were looking for somebody to get back in BMX. So he mentioned my name. I applied, working in customer service full time. And then on weekends, they were sending us out to BMX races and, you know, or seminars or whatever we had to do for Shimano. But I remember them telling me they want to get back into BMX. They want to get back into BMX. And I kind of give them what I thought was the next thing, which was V brakes. Well, they brought the V brake idea, but I thought brakes were going to be the next thing, and pedals, and cranks and things like that. And, you know, just like the old DX line. And
Yep.
so they did. And in 95, I remember we launched everything. I was hanging out with Belt Buckle Nelson and Barry Nelson, and he was riding for GT at the time. I was riding for Haro. So he was riding, God, who were we riding for? We were riding for some bike shop team. And we decided to go to Japan and ask them just to sponsor us and make jerseys and everything. So they did. So there was a time when we were wearing basically Lycra racing. And we were wearing all the road stuff, like real tight jerseys and half helmets and, you know, mountain bike half helmets.
I remember that. I remember that.
And then they're like, hey, we want you guys to check out these shoes and pedals. And we're like, we're going to kill ourselves with these clips. And I remember our inaugural day of riding those things, we went down to Dover, which is this jumping zone in down in Newport Beach. Pretty good jumps, lots of stuff there. And we're like, if we can make it through all this stuff, we can clip in at races. And sure shit, we did it. So we were able to do that and give the thumbs up to Japan. And they're like, we're making these MX70 shoes and these big red pedals, which hilarious little story on the red PDM 636 that you guys loved is I hated that color. I hated red. I told Japan it sucked. I got super in trouble because I sent it. That was back when we actually had fax. We did.
Dude, time out. I thought the red was ingenious because you could see the red V brakes on every single bike around. Like you're like, oh, it's a red DX V brake. I can see that. To me, the red made total sense. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. So when I was a young kid at that time, I was 20. God, you were 21. I had kind of a S&M mentality, and I was like, red, what the hell, red? I want black. Exactly. And I remember faxing over the guys that were making it, and I said, this is the stupidest thing ever. I hate it. Red sucks. And I got pulled in the office by the Japanese, you know, at the time, our management, and they pulled me in and they said, you can't do that. That guy literally crushed his dreams. This guy came out of college. He did all this work. He's now working for us. And he developed this, and you just basically crapped on him. I was like, well, I hate the color. Fired to this day. There's a lot of things I've done at work I can't believe I haven't been fired for. But that particular time I thought I was going to get my walking papers. And they said, you got to like the red. And I said, I don't like it. And so we worked on it a little bit more. And the red, can you drop that real quick? Try that and pull it down. Thank you. Yep. And then pull it down when you get up. Sorry. Got the kid going by. He's saying hi.
Hey.
Sorry about that. Hey. So they were just like, keep working on it. Try to get these guys. And I had a lot of different team guys that say they didn't want to wear the red because it was so clashing with whatever that, you know, Haro had yellow bikes and this and that. And I remember GT, we had a meeting with them and they're like, look, we can make this work on our bikes. Let's do this with the red pedals, the red things. We'll put red grips on it. We'll do these cool ads with like dragster wheels hooked to the bikes. We had some really cool ads back then and it worked. And I ate my words. I even told the guy later, I was like, I made a huge mistake. That's the best color we have ever done. And, you know, to this day, you talk about it with anybody that was around at that time racing. The red pedals were the best. The red V brakes were the best. They had the most amount, was just spot on with them. So
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say they're the best.
We,
I was a big fan of the XTR V brake. When you gave me those, that was they're still on my bike that hangs on the wall that has flat tires. It's the last one I ever raced. It's a Specialized Hemi S-Works.
yeah,
Hangs on the wall. I can go over and grab the brakes and they still work perfectly. Bing, 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 bing. They're amazing.
I personally like the silver ones that are not DXR ones, but they're the same model. I like silver. But yeah, you were one of the few, going back to your time with us, is you were always, not only are you just the baddest dude on a bike, and I have pictures of you jumping trails that I still wish I could do what you do, but just awesome. But anyway,
Thanks,
I remember that you were just so hard to please, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was just, this guy want the best at all costs. And I always liked, and I was like, okay, I got two problems here. I got the problem that everybody thinks they'll want the same thing because Craig's got it. So I have these guys that can't have it. And I was like, look, this is going to be my guy that I'm going to play with. He's going to do some cool different things than everybody else, and it might be stuff that we use for a little bit that he doesn't use again. And for example, when we put the XTR or cranks on your bike there for a bit, I remember you were like, dude, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay, you're gonna probably destroy every lap, but let's try it and see how they go. Didn't. And those cranks were just amazing. And I didn't understand the whole point behind what I was doing at the time, just because I just wanted to have the coolest top end stuff on your bikes. And I did the same thing on my bikes.
Dude, they were so light. The rotation weight on them it was so light. It was crazy. It was a no-brainer to me. Like, if you can put the lightest stuff on there that's going to hold up, and I wasn't hard on the product anyway, so I can get away with running some light stuff. But man, those were fantastic. So
absolutely.
Good.
And that's that aluminum, the duraluminum, which is what the XTR is made out of. It was segue into taking what our knowledge was of building cranks and bringing future. Like, that's how the Saint crank was basically derived in 2003, is based off of all those years from 2000 to 2002 of us using XTR crank on BMX. What we needed to do, like people pulling threads out of the pedals from how much power we were putting down. It's like, you think we're putting a lot of power down, look at these guys jumping off the cliffs. So they're putting a lot of stress on the crank. So they took that technology, and if you look at the DXR crank, that crank was basically built off of a Saint crank, but the technology is the same way we built the XTR at that time. And the 950 series crank is what you were using. That still to this day, it's won so many races. It's the only crank in our lineup, and I could be wrong about this, but as far as I remember, because I was working in marketing at that time, that has won not only downhill races, cross country races, 4-cross races, and BMX.
Amazing.
It's got national titles in every one of those, and world titles. So I remember Barry being the very first national #1 guy as an amateur with XTR cranks. And there was all these, the first guy to win, God, I think McPherson might have been the first guy to ever win with our pedals as a national champion. I can't remember for sure. He claims it is, and I think he's right, because he did the MX70 and the red pedal, and everybody else, like Lopes and those guys, were wearing the smaller 737 XT pedal and like a road or mountain bike shoe.
Yep.
And
yeah, the other ones were pretty heavy. The brown shoe
and I remember
with the Velcro.
Yep. And then that's when we went to the road shoes, and we started gluing soles on them to make them stiff mountain bike shoes. And if you look at our mountain bike shoes nowadays, they're pretty much that right there.
Yeah,
and
I look at them every day. Every time I get on my bike, I look at them all the time. Yeah,
it's like, it's a road shoe with the carbon fiber, and it's got some cleats, glued to the bottom of it. So there was really cool technology that I was able to get. I was BMXers to kind of play ball with us trying things, even if it cost them a race. And I think you were the most important one to me, and my people getting things done. You always were willing to go, what can I do? What can I ride? Some guys were not that way. Ellis rode our stuff. He wouldn't ride, clips, but he did ride the brakes. Each guy was different, and I had Levesque try the cranks and he ripped them off in one shot. So I was
Well,
like, no, that's
I mean,
not going to work.
I can see that. His
but,
level, his torque. I don't know what his watts were, what he put out, but dude, it was obscene. Like I've told people this before. You'd get on the gate with that dude, and it was humbling and embarrassing sometimes. If you didn't get out and you were on point, his 1 through 10 were so strong and so solid. You're like, I can't compete with that. Especially as I got older, I was like, shit.
Him and Robert DeWilde and Allier and all those guys, they used to go down to Sheep and we'd watch them. They would sit there and see how close they could start to a double. Yep. And just hammer on the throttle, jump 20 feet over a big set of doubles and pump the rest of the way and do 2 laps. And you're just like, how in the hell they do that? I mean, there was nobody, even Foster, who was the trail king down there at Sheep, could not do that. When those guys, a training session, even though they were having fun, and it was pretty impressive, the power, man. But then again, they have back issues. So.
Yeah. Right. Trade off. I can still golf.
Yep. But, I'll tell you what, there are some things that people don't know that we developed that actually hurt some people, and we never came out with it. And one was the Dash 2 hub. I worked really, really hard with Japan to build a 2-speed centrifugal clutch type hub that would shift based on speed. So
get out of here.
It was based off of what they use in what we call a mama-san, just your daily cruiser, where speed would allow it to shift to the heavier gear. It was like a centrifugal clutch. And we had figured it out based on gear ratios, whether you're using a 42 or a 44. That was the 2 gears we really were messing with, because we didn't. So just a little technology here. Every time you drop a gear in the back, you add about 2.5 teeth in the front.
Yep.
And it was too big of a jump. So like if you go back to the Browning 2 speeds or any of these shifting systems that Lopes had played with, or these derailleur systems, when you shift the rear cog from, let's say, a 16 to a 15, it is a ginormous jump in the front.
Yeah.
I think nowadays it would probably work pretty good if you were racing on the downhill tracks, like a World Cup event, because you're going at top speed, that the shift would not hinder your performance in spinning. And I think that's why I'm really shocked that nobody has done that. I mean, I know there's some guys messing with it, but I'm talking like getting out there and really learning how to do it so they could win some races, because obviously, if you could shift gears down the first straightaway and get the whole shot and then power past or power ahead even more, so you're not looking like you're going 1,000 miles an hour, not going anywhere, with a spin. And BMXers can do it. We have the ability to spin very high rates. So we had developed a shifter setup where there was a shift button on the hub, so you could have it shift at a lower speed or a higher speed based on how far the first jump was. So you would roll out the first jump from the gate and find out how many cranks it was, and based on that, you would put it in whatever shift mode it would be in, so you could have it shift earlier or later. I raced that for a couple years, actually probably not that long, about a year. I raced the 2007 World Championships up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I raced the World Cup with it too at Nanaimo the following weekend, which is where I won. So
did anybody know that was on? Did anyone know that you had that? Did anyone know that you had that hub? Because I didn't.
No.
Otherwise, I'd have been like,
I know Barry did. Barry did, and there was one other person that does know about it that would be interested in, because he told me if it could work without ever breaking, it would revolutionize BMX, and that was Gary Ellis. So at the World in 2007, I had him ride my GT because I think I was riding a GT at that time. Yeah, I think I was, because we were working on with GT. And it was painted red. It was called the Dash 2. It was the same lettering as the movie Rad. So I had the cool, the I don't know, Dash 2. It was the bitchinest thing ever. And Gary got on it. I raced. I did all of practice with it, and I figured out the gearing. I believe I ran at that race, I ran a 42.16. And when it shifted, it wouldn't shift. We were able to figure out the gear ratio, so it only shift like it was feeling like you were only jumping 1.01 gears. So it was really close. It was like shifting from a 43 to a 44 or a 42 to a 43. Because I had to race the pro class there, because there was no amateur on 20-inch, I decided to race open with it. And kicking the crap out of me out of the gate, because you were pros and I was amateur. So I put it in this lower thing, and I hole shot it against, God, there's a video somewhere. I hole shot it against Christophe Lebec and Kiyomi Waller. I smoked them to the first corner. They blew past me like I was standing still in the second corner, or going into the second corner. But it was impressive, and I was like, holy crap, this is gonna be something cool. And it just worked. It shifted just as I was going over the top of the first jump pedaling. And all it did is it got harder by 1 gear. It was very little. If I had the horsepower, I'd have probably ran a 43 to a 44, or even a 44 to 45. I think that's what Perth went to when he beat Romero there, as he went up 1 gear to.
Dude, I think he's like a 47.16 or something stupid, according to what
some
Hill was saying in the interview.
Yeah, and he put his clips on too.
Yeah.
So,
yes. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, he just put his clips on. He's like, I'm going for power. And he put a ginormous gear, and he just blew right by Romero. And I was like, oh my God. But I had Gary ride that, and he didn't ride it on the track. He just rode it, and he's like, holy crap, this is amazing. If you can get it to, now this was Gary's last year, I believe was 2007. So, or 2008. He was like, if you can get this thing to go without breaking, this is revolutionizing BMX. So 2 or 3 weeks later, I was at Cold Canyon. It locked up. It exploded all over the whole course. There were bearings everywhere, and whatever, the clutch pieces and everything.
It looked like a drag race when they blow a motor.
It was
just yard sale.
Remember, Cole had that long straight, and then it turned where the old first gate, or where the gate was, and then it'd go downhill, and it blew apart going through those 4 little jumps through the corner. Whoa. And I crashed so hard, busted a wrist. Went to work the next day on Monday or whenever it was, and my boss pulled me in, Satoshi. He's retired now. His name's Sato-san. He pulled me and goes, what happened, Chad-san? And I said, I crashed. I broke the Dash 2. I got to say. And he called them, and I have never seen this in my life, swear on my mom, that he reamed whoever it was on the phone, and then they shut it down that day. They just shut it off. That was it. No more. I'm not gonna get my employees or anybody hurt on product. If we can't make it right, we're not making it. And that was the last of the Dash 2. And I think I have the prototype shell at work somewhere. It was pretty cool. And then, of course, fast forward a little bit, we made our own hubs. They were okay. That was when the hub craze with, the different free hub bodies were going crazy, with all the 4 systems. We finally got our prototype. They wouldn't last very long, especially with the Dutch team. They kept breaking them, but they were using them. So of course that was taken out of the contracts where guys could run. We would love them to run our hubs. I never had a problem, but I wasn't putting that kind of horsepower down. Barry never had a problem, but I mean, the Wildy would get him to last for a while, but they didn't like him at all, man. He's a
big dude. He's 200 pounds.
Yeah, he had some big, gnarly just he could destroy anything. He was breaking frames and everything. So the hubs kind of faded away, which is kind of a bummer because I still have them on my bikes here that I have left. They work bodies on them and stuff because I know they work really well. But they don't have that instant engagement that everybody's looking for nowadays, and that is the rage. And I know that that's what we're doing on our high end like XTR hubs and Dura-Ace hubs. We have that, and they're pretty amazing. But the technology they're just not. They won't spend that kind of money or time to develop it into BMX unless they can sell a lot of units. And we really just don't have. Yeah, we just don't have the infrastructure that we did before with all the companies that make a ton of BMX bikes. Now it's all these little frame companies, and really Shimano deals in, I think this has been a while, so it could probably change, but the BMXs, they won't produce anything unless they can at least sell 10,000 units. So that seems like a lot to some people, or it seems like not a lot to some people. But when you're talking with the BMX world, when there's 30,000, 35,000 people that race in the USA BMX, and most of them are probably too small to have a certain item that we would make, like V brakes or flip pedals or whatever the sanction rules are, that it makes it very difficult. So that's why currently you don't see us making anything new. Plus what we have works really well. We have the small rotors, we have the disc brakes or disc brakes,
How small do you make rotors now? How small are they?
Our smallest rotor is a 140. So
okay. All right.
And I don't think anybody in BMX is making a 110, but that could be possible. It doesn't need to be that big of a rotor. If it's not there, it's coming. But ours is a 140 and they're tiny. With the frame mounted brakes that you can stuff them between the chain stays, and you can do so much cool stuff to get out of the way. And I think with the technology that I'm seeing in the bikes right now with the 1.5 head tubes, I think they're overboard with the 20 millimeter front axles. I don't think they need to do over 15, but that's just my opinion.
Right.
Went away from 20 mils. They're running, and this is with 8 inches of travel of forks that twist around and can move. And they went away from the 20 and they're running 15, a lot of them, especially enduro guys, so I think the OS 20 is a little, or whatever, that oversized 20 mil axle might be a little too much for BMXs, but I know some guys are running some really cool hubs in the back and, dealing with that. And it's pretty cool. The technology. I don't understand the seats, but whatever.
I don't either. You might as well just put a little cap on the seat post and not even have a seat. That's just me. So, but let's move on to where you're at now, Chad. You've been a sponsored athlete and a pro on a bicycle, but now, and I know we don't have much more time because I know you got to get going. But talk to me about what you're doing now, because you're still sponsored. You're still doing something at a professional level. It's like you transcended everything you learned from riding a bike and you brought it to a totally different sport. How did you get into this? And what was your influence behind it?
Well, so in 2007, sorry, I want to fix something. That whole deal with the hub was in 1997, not 2007. The 97 Worlds, that's when it was up in Saskatoon. I forget how old I am. I'm sorry, guys. So for all you guys listening, it was 1997, not 2007. I actually retired in 2007. So I was racing, and I was racing mountain bikes for Haro at Snowshoe, West Virginia, and it rained out. I qualified, I think, first. The kid from Profile, what's his face, that runs Profile, he was there.
Termite.
He either qualified first or I did, but we always went back and forth that year. He ended up turning semi-pro, and then I won the national championships in amateur at my age level. And then Mike King said I had to go semi-pro. He was going to fire me. So I did. And I don't know where Termite went, but I won a bunch of races and stuff like that. But anyway, we were up there, it rained out. There was nowhere to go ride or anything. So I took everybody that I was working with at Shimano out shoot
Wait, you
up
broke
there.
up.
They have a
You
rain.
broke up. You did
Oh,
what? You broke up. You went what?
so we were at Snowshoe, West Virginia at a race, and it got rained out, and I took everybody that was working for me at Shimano. Even though I was racing for Haro, we went out and shot clay targets. So I ended up with one of my employees shooting like 400 shells that day. I had a bruise on my shoulder, had no idea what I was doing. I grew up around guns being from Montana, but I never really did anything. I was always racing. I was wanted to be a champion, whether it was a state championship in Idaho or Montana or up in Canada or whatever. So I didn't care about that stuff, even though I lived around it. And so I loved it. And I was like, well, I'm going to come back to California, and nobody does it here. Actually, clay target sports was really huge back in the 70s and 80s here in California. So when I got back, that's when the internet started getting hot. And around 2006, I think, was the year that we did this. It might have been 2005. And I was like, there's clay target ranges everywhere. So I kind of got into it. I started reading the magazines, looking at videos that were available, just like BMX.
Just like BMX.
And
Yep.
Yep. And then my first registered shoot was in 2007 in April, I believe. And I just got hooked ever since. I was still racing in 2007. And then I got fifth at the NBL Grands. And as I went across the finish line, because they were doing the camera interviews, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going to go change. And everybody's like, okay, cool, go change. No, they didn't realize when I said I was done, I was actually done. I did race into the 2000. I had to race for Chris Moeller at S&M, and I went all the way. That year is when I rode away, and I never came back until 2012 when I raced as an amateur down in Chula Vista. So, because the kid that just walked by wanted to see me race. He didn't think he believed me. He didn't believe all the videos. And so anyways, I was shooting, not knowing anything. I befriended our current national champion. I'm really, really vast friends. And he's like, if you're going to learn the sport, you got to go to my buddy who's a coach who ended up being a really good friend of mine too. And he's also a national champion and a world champion. And I just got really good coaching, and because I knew that was the same as BMX, and I put my head down just like in BMX, and I just started shooting a lot, and I wanted to be a pro in this game. So that was in 2007 was my first shoot. I turned pro in 2009, and so I did it in 2 years. And my first major shoot that I ever won, I won the Arizona State Championships in 2013. Or 2014, I was trying to make what we call our professional tour, which is called the PSCA, which is the Professional Sporting Clay Association. I was trying to make the TV tour that was all over the Outdoor Network for a while. And I failed my first year in 2014. I hired another coach and kind of changed my ways in 15. And that year, I actually beat out the 2017 or 16 world champion. All these guys I had to beat out. I made the semifinals of the TV show. And the guy that actually beat me won the event. And I ended up just, making the tour. In 2016, I spent being on tour and being a pro. And I did that all the way through 18 when the series got canceled. And in 18, I signed my first contract with a firearm company, Blaser Shotguns. And the one thing different from this game and BMX is the marketing is different here, because they know you need a gun and they know you need the ammo and to go shoot. So sponsorships are very, very rare in this game, even at the top level. If you get one, it's because you're good enough to get one, but it's really, really hard. So I thought differently. I didn't want to wait for people to come to me. So I put on social media. as you guys have seen. I also used my background in marketing because I worked at Shimano in marketing for years and years and years, doing all of North America contracts for sponsorship and developing product and all that. I just used that knowledge and built some PowerPoints and media packages that I sent to all these different companies, and they were sending me notes like, wow, we've never had anybody do this before, which was kind of funny because you're dealing with people that have a lot of money. And it just wasn't done that way. And this game, is as long as it's been around, is still a little naive in the marketing world. So you know, I was able to approach a few sponsorships, and I've good deal. Now, on top of that, I do pretty good. 2018 and 19, I made
Well,
the
yeah, you're
All-American.
good enough to get a sponsor. You just called it out, dude.
Yeah, in 18 and 19, I was running top 20 in the United States. I won California state championships in 2019. Obviously, I was on a roll. I finished top 15 at the Nationals. In 2016, I was in top 3. I did some really cool things in the game. Coming into the COVID year, 2020, I thought it was going to be on. Kind of obviously the sales got cut out for me from the wind. And, you know, I was just doing my thing, and I kind of got into a slump over the last 2 seasons, shooting out on tour with the COVID stuff. I just wasn't putting in the performances, and I couldn't figure it out why. I was going to different coaches. A lot of them are my friends. There's some mental stuff. I've talked to Jason Richardson about things. You know, it was just, I didn't want to be that guy where I was on the bubble and not making it and still popular through social media. So I knew that to save my sponsorships, I had to do good with the you know, just the media stuff. But I also know that we're all just a number when it's a sponsorship, and you can be cut at any time, as you and I have talked multiple times about bike sponsorships. And I've had to cancel contracts before, and it's the worst feeling. You know, the person that you're cutting it out on is doing everything they can to, you know, their best for you and your company. And sometimes it just comes down to numbers. So I think this year I'm realizing that more so on a personal level. And I, as much as this is weird to say, I don't care so much about that anymore. I've done my job. You know, I've done what I needed to do to get the sponsorship. So this is on me. So I went back to my original coach, and back in December, and worked on some mental stuff, worked on, you know, some technical issues I was coming up with, and came home and I put the work in, man. I've shot, it's kind of hard to say, like 7,255 rounds in the last 7 weeks. Before the start of the season, which was last weekend, and it worked out. And you know, I've gotten some really cool videos done with one of my sponsors, like RE Ranger Sporting Glass Shooting Glass Company. They did this big video that's all over the internet, and that's pretty cool. It's kind of neat to see myself at the top of a different sport. And I still haven't won anything big, and that's what I'm trying to go for. So, you know, but I dug it out of the ground, you know, because not many people at the age of, I think, 34 when I started, well, whatever age I was in 2007, I wasn't an 8-year-old kid like we were when we started BMX. So I didn't have all that muscle memory that, you know, these kids in shooting that have been doing it since they're 8 years old have had. So it's been a little bit more of a difficult road. You know, it's not like I'm getting any younger. I'm 49, going to be 50 this year. But my eyes are still really good, and my reflexes, I still work out all the time. I treat it like BMX. I still train. I have my bike. I don't ride it very much. I surf more than anything. But yeah,
surfing though, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love to be physical. You know, I still think I'm 16, even though I'm not. The bike stuff is just, you know, everybody asks me why I don't ride anymore. Living, you know, I was making money from Haro, working at Shimano, and I was going 50. I think between working Shimano weekends and working my race schedule, I was easily gone 36 to 40 weekends a year.
All right.
Obviously took a toll on my first marriage. And, there was, I didn't see it, because when you're doing it, you don't notice any of that stuff. But, this one's a little different because, my girlfriend, who's my fiance, is right there with me. She knows how hard I'm working. She wants me to be a part of it. The other part of this too is because of the sponsorships are so rare in this game. A lot of us, how we make money, if you're trying to do it professionally, is you teach. So gifted by God, I guess, or something from BMX, where I've taught in China with BMX. I remember in 08 when the Haro team taught over there. I did a ton of clinics in my time, as you have too. We all have summer tours, which they don't do anymore. So any of you guys listening, the tours were badass back then, because that's what you did. You did a lot of clinics, and there's nothing like it. And I have a canny way of teaching, and I take a lot from what I've learned in BMX, and kind of a hard ass with my students, but they're paying me to teach them how to shoot. So I'm teaching them how to win. Some people in our sport, some of the top, you can't be coached by somebody that isn't a champion themselves. And for that, I believe that, because it's hard. You can't teach experience. But you can talk about it if you have it. I've talked to those same guys and go, what about me? I haven't won any big titles. And they're like, yeah, but you're a champion in your other sport. And that's huge. And true, I'm a 5-time ABA World Cup world champion, whatever they call those things back then.
And what an awesome way to respect your history and what you've done as well.
Yeah.
And realize that transcends from athleticism to athleticism and sport to sport, right? I think that same mental state you can carry over.
I know I'm shooting a firearm, but and a lot of the guys that do this game are big guys, and they're retired or whatever, but it's no different than golf. I mean, the guys that are in shape are the ones that are winning and going at it. But yeah, for me, it was a good transition. I wanted to compete. I will always compete at something. I'd compete in surfing if I could, but I just can't figure that game out. And I'm old. But I'd race RC cars. I did that for a while professionally.
Bogey Givens crushes it on the RC cars, dude.
Oh, him and I talk every once in a while. I was racing electrics, and and back in 04 and 05, I was actually racing locally. As a pro, racing the pro ranks. And Dwayne Taylor, our buddy Dwayne Taylor, was helping me out.
Dwayne got a stack of those things, dude. Yes.
Yeah, he was helping me out with the HB stuff and HPI. And it was a cool run, but it wasn't me. And this kind of brings back the heritage of where I'm from, being from Montana, and it's something I grew up around. But it is a tool. Firearms to me are just a tool. I know there's a whole political thing about guns and stuff, but it's a tool for me to compete. I blow up clay targets for a living. I teach. I've learned how to be a really damn good coach. And I got students that are national champions in their classes and state champions. And that's a great feeling, because it's something to do to give back. And cool things from my sponsors like that, just like, doing cool, shooting vests and, all these cool things. I have, custom stocks on my gun to, a choke sponsor and glass sponsors for my eyes. And, it's just, I have an ammunition sponsor that just, this game is so expensive as it is. You think BMX is expensive, guys. My entry fees are quadruple what you guys pay in BMX, and people are bitching about BMX. I was like, you have no idea. But
it's a different world once you get out of it, man. It's a different world once you graduate from BMX to other things. It's eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, and I miss it. It's not going to ever be what it was for me. And, growing up in a small town, going to the movie theater and watching the movie Rad and thinking that's my life, because it is. And, I've even had Mr. Allen at Shimano with the movie. We had a movie night. I had him come and talk about it. And I'm like, this is my life. I come from a small town racing BMX. I was 1 in 20, and or whatever, and I made it, and I'm very, I had good people like you around me to give me advice, from a professional standpoint, because you guys knew the racing side of the business, me who to talk to and who not to talk to. And I was never had a big enough ego to ask for help. And I bring that in the shooting world too. Like a lot of the pros, they don't have anybody to talk to because they just think they're the best and they're just going to do it their way. I have no ego. I'm a product of good coaching. So I go to my friends who are coaches that are top in their game, and they're the ones that we strive to go after. And I will ask them for help, and I have no issues doing that. And, I wish BMX was like that. It never was, because it was all an individual sport. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not the same. So everybody keeps asking me if I'm going to come back. I would love to come back and race. I would do. I love to put the horsepower down, but it's just not me anymore. So, I still have my bikes. There's my S&M up there, my all black bike that I race. I don't know if you can see that.
I can see it.
But that I still have my wheels, and I will never get rid of that bike. I have sold every single bike I've owned except my BMX bike. And I promise myself, even when I pass on out of this world, that I'll have a BMX bike in my possession. Flat pedal DXR pedals that I helped develop. So, I'm just fortunate. I've almost 30 years at Shimano. I'm in a position where I can have my weekends off to shoot and teach.
Chad, you talked about teaching. How can someone get a hold of you? How can someone get a hold of you if they want to, seek you out for some coaching or some training?
It's pretty easy. I got 3 emails. I got my Shimano one that hasn't changed since I worked there. It's croberts@shimano.com. So if you guys have questions on bikes and stuff, I'd love to help you. But my shooting contact is BPSI. So Bravo, Paul, Sam, Inward, Pro at Shimano or at gmail.com. So it's BPSI Pro. If you don't want to do the abbreviation, I also have an email. It's just written out. It's Breakpoint Shooting Instruction at Gmail.
Perfect.
And I'm on Instagram at Breakpoint Shooting Instruction. I'm on Facebook. PM me. I'm always on Facebook. Probably too much. The girlfriend says I need to get off it. Phone number is 949-637-3001. It's the same number I've had for about 20 years. So 949-637-3001. They can contact me through you. I don't have a website yet. It's there, but I haven't flipped the switch because I'm pretty much thinking the day I do is the day I quit Shimano, because it's going to be a situation where I'm going to have to travel and teach all the time. And right now I just travel in different pockets of the country and teach certain times of the year. Do that. And, I usually have it scheduled around a shoot or something like that. But other than that, I'm at all the local ranges here in Southern California. And that's what I do.
I love it, dude, man. It has been a pleasure catching up with you. I love hearing your story in the background and where you came from and where you are now and how you got there. I love it. It's amazing. So thanks for your time today.
A lot of stuff.
All right, we're back in it, man. I don't know what happened with the connection, but it's pretty spotty. So before I lose you again, I want to thank you again for your time today, dude. This has been awesome. Always a pleasure catching up. Keep the mustache and the beard. Don't change it. If it's helping you shoot, man, bust it out. Keep it rolling.
I'm going to keep doing it. And hopefully let's do this again so we can get on a better connection and try it again.
Okay, dude, perfect. I mean, this is a great start. How about that? Well, next time we'll talk more about the shooting side.
One of many series.
Deal. I'll take it.
All right.
Thanks, brother. Well, hey, if you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure you go ahead and subscribe here on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe there as well. Thanks for tuning in, Chad. You have a great day, brother. I'll talk to you soon. See you guys.